Hello and welcome back to Anything Goes. I'm your 5 Wing 4 host, Madison.
And I'm your Nine Wing One host, Caden.
And today we are redoing our Type 8 episode because the original one had some audio errors. And when I went back and listened to it a little bit more, it had even more audio glitches than just like the big like blank spots. There were times when like our audio just kind of was completely fucked. So we're gonna remake the episode with the same notes. So hopefully it's along the same lines. You might you're definitely gonna get some new things from this episode. So if you listen to the last one, you'll still probably end up getting something from this one. But if you're just jumping in here, I don't really recommend listening to the old one. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I can't decide if eights are gonna be like, if it's like a yay, we get to do this again, eights, you're so special, or if it's a like, how dare you for fucking up our number, you know?
The thing is, I think they just didn't give a shit because literally no one emailed us or tweeted at us or did anything to let us know that the audio was messed up. And we had a bunch of people who listened to it. It wasn't until my girlfriend listened to the audio and was like, hey, did you know that there's a huge chunk of audio that's just missing? And I was like, no, I didn't know that. So
We should have played it off.
I should have
It
played it
was
off. This is,
intentional.
yeah, intentional to piss off all the eights, I guess.
Hmm.
But yeah, so we'll do a little more intro. So our email is EnneathingGoes at gmail.com. Just to reiterate, EnneathingGoes at gmail.com,
If
just in
this
case.
episode also fails
Yeah.
majorly, please just shoot us an email. Or if that's too much work, you can tweet at us
Mm-hmm.
how, you know, all the audio is screwed up again at Anything Goes on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Also, just send us info in general about the audio quality because we are trying new mics and stuff. So I haven't heard any feedback about our last episode and whether or not people liked the new mics. So I think my audio sounded much better. I don't know about Caden, so we're trying
Apparently, it's
some new
worse.
things. Yeah.
I have a different setup today. Maybe it'll work better. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got a comment on it from I had a oh, this is embarrassing. I had like an info interview with a professional contact today.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I was in the office and the office internet went out. And then
Oh, of
second of all,
course.
he had a comment on my audio quality from those headphones. So
Mm.
I feel like they're just doomed.
Yeah, no, they were very bad.
Good to know that
Yeah.
I've been taking all of my work calls on them. No one has told me.
Oh, but yeah, so some disclaimers. We're not safe for work, so probably listen with some headphones in. We are very gay and LGBT friendly. Um, we are not professional Enneagram people. We have no degrees or certifications. We're just Enneagram enthusiasts. And we're not a Christian podcast.
So every month when we released an episode, we ask the next episode people, you know, what a question. And the question that we asked eights was, if you were a ruler, would you rather be feared or loved?
Oh, I remember this question. It's been so long. Like, I feel like I really
A
am
month.
doing a whole new episode because it's just, I've forgotten all of this. Like, I forgot what we said.
I do. Okay, I have to say though, I feel like the eight. So one of my one of my best friends is an eight. And used to be my roommate, and I texted them and I said, hey, here's this question. What do you think? And they said, feared by my enemies and loved by my people, which I think is a very that's the middle ground there. That's what
That's
eights
peak.
want.
It's peak eight because they want that control, but they also go to two.
Yep.
Want that love. Um, so Um, uh, I think this was mine. I think they would prefer to be loved, but actually in office, I don't think they'd actually care either way. I think it would sting a little bit sometimes if people were afraid, but at the end of the day, they would do what they thought was right. Um, and so, especially even in health, they kind of might go into like, I'm gonna protect my people mode and maybe like, I don't know, do some war crimes, just like because they feel like they didn't have to, or because they felt like they had to, I mean, and that might get them hated or feared.
I think eights are probably great crisis leaders, but very bad, like average level eights are probably very bad when you're doing well, but very good when you're doing bad, you know?
I think it depends on the eight because, like I said, I think an eight in crisis mode would be like, I'm going to do what it takes. And if what they think it takes is really too harsh for the situation, they're still going to do it anyway because they're like, I don't know, it's the like, I'm going to do what's best, even if it's tough. And sometimes they're just kind of wrong. Like, think Thanos. Like, when he's
Is Thanos an
like,
eight?
I think Thanos is an eight. And I think his like killing half the population is what needs to be done for us to like. Oh yeah, sorry, spoilers. But like, oh, by now you should know it.
But
Sorry.
we should put a warning in our show notes maybe.
Yeah,
Spoilers for Avenger Endgame.
yeah. But like his like, wanting to kill half the population is in no means a good plan and has been disputed like several times by people who like think it's like a correct or good way to go, and it's just wrong. But he's like, I need to do this. I need to take the steps that other people are too weak to do. So I think it really
Well,
just depends
yeah.
on whether or not the eights are have generally good morals, which they could. Which it's not I'm not saying that eights don't have good morals, but like it would depend entirely on that eight's morals.
Also, the internet's gonna get on me for having a whole like MCU discussion, but MCU Thanos is by far inferior to the comic book Thanos, even though I've never read the comics. I've read articles about the comics. That's why I said the internet's gonna attack me for this because I have no idea what I'm talking about. But just like what they had a character that was in love with death, and instead
Mm,
of going that very very good goth route, they chose MCU Thanos,
mm.
and I will forever be disappointed about what could have been.
I know nothing about like the comic books, so I'll just have to take
I
your
will
word
repeat,
for
I've
it.
never read them. I've only read articles about people who are mad about it, and I agree.
Okay. We had some like FDR and Churchill
I,
notes, but I've
okay,
forgotten the point that we had.
yeah, why is FDR and Churchill in here?
I have no idea. I can't remember why we were mentioning them. It must not have been important. Um,
Completely random, but if you do want to know more about Churchill, is Churchill an eight?
I think we said Churchill was an eight. That's why he's in here.
Well, sure. I think that makes sense. If you want to know more about Churchill, I just listened to a podcast by Dan Carlin that was just sort of like random stuff about Churchill. That was pretty interesting. I'm just gonna recommend Dan Carlin's podcast, Hardcore History.
Mm.
Has nothing to do with the Enneagram, but he talks about Churchill, so that's tangentially related.
Yeah, so I'm ready to move on from the
Yeah.
question. What about you? Any other things?
No.
No. I'm pretty sure that audio was still intact if I'm remembering correctly, so you can hear our Churchill discussion. Um, so some type 8 basics recapped. We did do in our introduction episode, we did kind of some type 8 basics. So if you want to go back and listen to that, um, that's probably a good episode to jump into. So type 8 names. Type 8s are known as the challenger, the maverick, the bear, the protector, the active controller, and I think you have a note here about Naranjo.
I think I put that in after the fact. This is new.
Oh, oh.
Um, I just think that it's so hilarious. So I just got a book by Naranjo a couple months ago now, I guess.
Hmm.
The Enneatype Structures book,
Hmm.
and he names the chapter on the eight coming on strong, which I think is very evocative.
Hmm. Did you add the next one then too?
Uh, maybe revolutionary activist. Maybe
Hmm.
is that was that you? I have no recollection of anything. I don't
I
even
don't.
remember what happened last week.
Yeah. Okay. So another name is the revolutionary activist. Um. Yeah. So basic fear and desire. The eights. Their fear is of being controlled by others, and their desire is to protect themselves or to be in control of their own life and destiny. And they have idealized the idea of autonomy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Their growth and stress points or integration and disintegration. There's a lot of different names for how those things move. But when eights are not having a great time, they'll go borrow some five traits and become excessively concrete. If you want to like hear this in action, I guess I'm just making podcast recommendations today. But the Enneagram for Idiots podcast, one of their hosts is an eight, and she has a very good analysis of type eights. So if you're interested in what that looks like in stress, she talks about that a little bit there. They go to two in growth and take on some of those more tender or gentler qualities. Um, and this is a new note that I added in here, but in that same book, um, Naranjo points out that it's the most insensitive type, um, in a way that it's like opposite of four in the Enneagram, like framework in that diagram. It's the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of four. And while is the most sensitive, you can think about eight as the most insensitive in some ways. Which, there's pros and cons of that. It sounds very bad when you say it like that, because usually that's a criticism. You're insensitive.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ways that like becomes a plus.
Wait, what's that? What's your next quote?
Oh,
The
um,
Because that sounds
next,
interesting. I would like you to.
that that he talks about pleasure and passion in a way that makes it sound very kinky. Let me pull up. It makes me think of like kinkiness in the Foucault way, in the like it's kinky, but it's not. Here.
I'm having trouble remembering what Foucault is. Did we go
Foucault.
over this? Did we?
Honestly,
Sorry.
fuck Foucault because he's a horrible writer, but he's right, and that makes me very mad. But he essentially talks about the relationship between power and pleasure, and is the origin or the history of sexuality, the origins on the history of sexuality. He also has the prison book, that's about the panopticon. Anyways, look him up and read a summary. All of his theoretical frameworks are pretty good. The actual reading is pretty shitty. But Naranjo talks about lust. Um, the characterological syndrome of lust is related to that of gluttony in that both are characterized by impulsiveness and hedonism. And then he compares and contrasts, and then in the next um, paragraph goes on to say the antisocial personality disorder described in DSM-3, which I assume is like a psychological book or something,
Yeah.
may be
Aren't we on
regarded
the
as a
DSM 5?
pathological. Huh?
Are we on the DSM 5?
Yeah, I mean, this is a book from. Hold on. It's one of the earlier ones. It's 1990.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Dates my birth. I guess I'm dating myself on air, but I mean, I feel like we've done that already. Um, may be regarded as a pathological extreme and a special instance of Enneatype 8. The broader syndrome may be better evoked through Reich. It's German, I think.
Oh,
Label
is
of
that that word we
quote,
looked up that one time and I completely forgotten it
Reich,
now.
Reich. It's a name.
Oh,
Reich.
oh.
Uh, Reich's label of phallic narcissistic character, or Horny's description of the vindictive personality. The word sadistic seems particularly appropriate in view of its position opposite of the masochistic character of the Enneatype 4. So it sounds kinky, you know? It sounds like some S&M fucking kinky shit, you
Hmm.
know?
I also think this is a good time to point out, once again, be careful where you're getting your Enneagram info and just be aware of your sources because sometimes it's pseudoscience, sometimes you're getting info from the DSM-3, some, you
Yep.
know, just be careful. Sometimes you're getting info from culty sources, so
Take
just,
everything with a generous helping of salt.
yes. Um, Also, it made me think of something, but I think I might want to talk about it instead. No, no, we'll do it now. So I used to my preface this. My girlfriend is a two, and I used to think that she like didn't go to eight very often, and like that always made me like question like whether or not she was actually a type eight. Um, and or sorry, whether or not she's actually a type two. Um, but I recognized her going to type 8 the other day. So we have to park like a half a mile away from our house during when it's like gonna snow because they just don't plow where we are. And there's like a really like dangerous hill and stuff. And so we got out of the car after we parked it down the hill and it was very dark and I like stepped in a hole kind of and I hit the ground hard and like I like twisted my ankle. This was uh when was it? Last night? It was last night.
Again?
Yes.
Didn't you just break your ankle?
It was only sprained, but I broke the wrist, sprained the ankle in October. And so it was the same ankle too. And I fell and caught myself with the same hand, but my wrist is still fine. And my ankle still twinges, and I had to have it wrapped up today, but I think it's going to be fine. But anyway, so when she went to go help me, and I was kind of resisting that help a little bit, like she was kind of yelling at me a little bit, and it was definitely her going to eight, like because like I have like when she was trying to help me like get up, she was like, "Put pressure on me. Do not put your pressure on your foot. Do not stop. Stop what you're doing. Put your pressure on me. Stop." And like it was very like her going to eight and being like, just will you just fucking put your weight on me
Wait,
so I can help you? Just stop.
do you guys meet at 8 sometimes? Do you go to 8 and she goes to 8 and it like is that a thing?
It hasn't happened yet. Um, and I think it probably would if we weren't in a relationship. Because when I go to eight and if I go to eight and she's vibing with it, she's like, "Ooh, yeah, like you tell him, sweetheart," or, um, or if it's kind of like if I'm kind of angry with her, then she just kind of is like, "Oh, you're mad at me," and cries. So I don't think we've actually gone to eight like together yet.
Hmm. This is getting a little bit off topic here, but I heard somewhere, and maybe I need to go find the study or whatever, and it's probably not a very reputable study because there aren't very many reputable studies on the Enneagram. Um, that it's very common for people to be in romantic partnerships with folks on their lines of integration and disintegration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm just curious about how that works in the relationship itself.
I think it. I think it's probably definitely a problem for other.
When you're
Um,
closer,
yeah, I
like if
think
you were
it
dating an 8, you would kind of feel more of that.
that too, but also I think that is an issue that twos and fives can have. I think our relationship is pretty healthy, especially since I've gotten a lot better about expressing needs and wants when they kind of first pop up. I'm still not amazing at it. I still have a lot of work to do. Um, and I've gotten better at recognizing her needs and wants and um, you know, so I mean there's still always room to grow, but because like I don't know, because we're not often going to stress and like we're not fighting as much, you know.
Mm.
We never have really huge conflicts unless there's like outside extenuating circumstances or pressure. Um, like the one time the doctor tried to tell me I had an STD and I didn't, and we were waiting on the STD results,
Oh God.
and yeah, and there was like tension about we've both had an STD test before and they were both negative, and the only way to get an STD is having sex with
Yeah.
someone with an STD. So that was a tense night. Um, I did not have an STD. The doctor was wrong. um, so yeah, so like that was kind of an intense night, and a little bit of fighting. But other than that, most of the time our fights they aren't they aren't ever really huge, you know. I yeah. So anyway, back to eights.
Back to eights after that very
Mm-hmm.
big roundabout
Yeah.
circuitous route. Their
Um.
passions and virtues. No,
Oh wait,
it's at Intelligence Center. I skipped ahead.
which I think we can probably just kind of. Your
Go
intelligence
go
center is anger and body, and we have a
go
whole
listen
new
to our
episode.
episode on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just go check that out. We've already talked. We spent a whole how long was it? An hour,
That was a
hour
long
and
time.
some odd minutes talking about it. Just go watch that. All
Right.
right, passions and virtues. I'll let
What
you
are
enter.
the passions and virtues, Maddie?
The passions are. Oh wait, what are the? Oh, what are our notes? Okay.
I was supposed to be teeing you up like a
I know.
softball.
And
For
I
you to just
couldn't. All right. So passions and virtues are they get kind of wrapped up in more of the Christian Enneagram stuff, and they get kind of tied in with the seven deadly sins, with like fear and oh, what's the other one? What's the other one it's added? Fear and lying, I think. I can't remember. I'm tired. So, they're really just kind of coping mechanisms that we use too often, and they can become kind of detrimental to our like psyche sometimes if we use them too often, and but they can still be used in good ways. So the passion of the eight is lust, and so I don't think we can use that first quote because I think it's
is it from the problematic man?
yeah, I think it's from the problematic man.
Drop him. Let me go
Yeah,
see what we're switching to Naranjo, I guess. It's my
yeah.
go-to quote book right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, here's one that is not from the problematic man. All right. The challenger moves forcefully ahead with conviction, passion, lust, intensity. Quote, asserting myself as a natural way to control events and the people around me. When I become aware of this action in me, I can see that I act and react aggressively in order to protect my own vulnerability. Awareness brings the virtue of innocence. All right. So basically, eights, um, they end up getting a lust for like vengeance and conviction and that intensity. And that intensity can lead them away from like peace. Um, and it can also lead them to it can lead them to extreme confrontations with like other people and even themselves, extreme internal conflicts. And so the reason that this is considered a vice or the passion is because of the
Or you create conflict
destructiveness.
so you can win the conflict.
Hmm. And it just kind of creates destruction and kind of focuses around that. So self destruction, destruction of others. And when you're angry like that and you're wanting that destruction, you're wanting that vengeance and revenge, and you have a lust for that, you yourself can never really be happy. It's like when people like um like my favorite quotes, especially from like I forget what her name was. She was a Holocaust victim. And it's how forgiveness is not for the other person. You don't forgive someone because they deserve it. You forgive someone because you deserve it. And you deserve that. You deserve to be able to relinquish that anger and distance yourself from it and to be able to heal. And so, eights, when you're so fixated on getting vengeance, getting revenge, you can never find peace. You can never see peace.
I think it's very like I had something. I had something and I lost it. Do you want to hear one of the sexy Naranjo quotes again?
Yes, please.
The extra intensity, the extra excitement, the spice, quote unquote, comes not from instinctual satisfaction, but from a struggle and an implicit triumph.
Ooh.
Pleasure in fighting for pleasure is another sexy Naranjo quote. I'm just listening.
Ooh.
Exactly. So you ready for my deep thought?
You
It came
remembered?
back. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remembered.
Okay.
Um, and it was about, and there's sort of an irony in all of the different ways that we try to protect ourselves and then fulfill like self-fulfilling prophecies almost.
Hmm.
But that eights are like their primary fear of is being reliant on external forces, external influences,
Hmm.
but really by creating a happiness that's contingent on triumphing over something external,
Hmm.
they set themselves up for that.
Hmm.
And so they're dependent upon it.
Ah, that is interesting.
And that's why it's the average level stuff, right?
Hmm.
Because actually you do reach true independence when you're no longer looking for that fight because
Hmm.
you know you're already, fine without it.
Yeah. All right. Ready to move on to virtues?
Yes.
Okay. So the virtue of the eight is innocence. And quote, innocence which leads to the godlike quality of truth. When an eight falls hard enough, they become vulnerable and open themselves up to huge, tender hearts that have been buried for so long. They become a protector of those wrong. They look out for the vulnerable with all the power and innate strength of will they have at their disposal. They are great advocates for social justice. And so, like I said with the like forgiveness thing earlier, I like to interpret that as innocence because will think a lot of people confuse forgiveness with innocence and um,
Like
naive
naivete. Yeah.
naivety. Yeah, and it's not. It really is for you to have found peace and to let things go for yourself. So I really think that can connect with the eight, you know. When you finally let go and start going to two more, and embrace weakness and seeing that it's not really weakness, but that it takes real strength to be vulnerable, um, and, and love people and forgive.
And I think, okay, I have a theory here.
Okay.
Not really my theory. This is other people have been saying this and have said this, and I stole it from them. I don't know who. I've heard it around that when we move, like our center, our number is really us moving away from our integration point, which is why it's hard to integrate, right?
Okay.
Like you start out moving away from your integration point when you're a kid because
Hmm.
you're like, I don't want to do that. And for me, it was seeing threes. Oh, well, this is why I sort of that feel like that tracks it because I saw three like behavior people who are braggarts in my opinion, and I was like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to be that. No one has having fun right now. It's just all about you.
Mhm.
Um, but for eights, like if you look at innocence and being innocent, and this is just a quick dictionary definition Google search, but it like being not responsible for or directly involved in an event yet suffering its consequences. And going back to there's different models of development that say that there's like a childhood wound, quote unquote, or some sort of confirmation bias
Mhm.
which reinforces your number.
Mhm.
For eights, I bet that's very often like being feeling like the world is out of your control in certain ways, that like it's not fair. There's a shattering of the innocence, a moment where that happens where you're like, oh, like I like shit will happen to me regardless of whether or not I deserve it. So I should just take what I need to keep myself safe because that's like the way forward.
Mm.
And it takes a lot of work to rebuild that trust in the world.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree. All right. Ready to move on to blind spots?
Yes.
All right. So, some blind spots. I'm going to quote these. First blind spot quote, because their energy may be stronger than they realize, eights may not be aware of how intimidating it may seem to other people. Contrary to what they believe, not just timid people may feel threatened and overawed in their presence. This may be the case even when they are holding back. And okay, so this one I think I mentioned before. Um, like I was like, I don't actually fear eights. Like it, you know, um, I just get kind of mad and I just kind of push back against it. And when we were talking earlier about how what you were saying about how your integration point, you kind of, don't really like it or you see it in other people. And that really hit home for me with the eights.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, sometimes I do see eights as being, like, really aggressive and, like, taking over my space. And I just don't like it. I just, um,
It's the
so
space thing
it's the space thing.
that you're reacting to.
Mm hmm.
Because as a five, you're so particular about space.
Mm hmm. Yeah. And so I think, yeah, I think this was my main like pushback, like this thing, and how I don't really find eights as intimidating anymore because it pushes me to eight because I'm like, no, no,
Mm.
I won't, no, you're not taking over my space. I think it triggers my, ironically, it triggers me to go to eight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I would actually grow if I was like in conflict with the three. I think I would go to six actually.
Yeah. Just get stressed out.
I would get stressed out, but then I'd be beating the three at their own game because they have to go to six too to integrate. So they just come to me, and then we just chase each other around the circle of death.
Yeah. All right. So next blind spot. Eights tend to move towards conclusion and action swiftly and decisively. Other people may need a lot more time to see the big picture and decide what to do about it. The force with which eights initiate and drive may therefore leave people feeling unprepared or overwhelmed. I can't speak to this because as a five, most of the time I feel unprepared and overwhelmed, so I don't know if it's eights specifically.
I, I, I feel actually I'm kind of the opposite.
Yeah? Oh,
I
because
not
they're so forceful, they like spur you into feeling prepared?
Oh no, just in general, how you feel unprepared and overwhelmed all the time.
Uh-huh.
Like, I feel just about as prepared at any given moment, at any other moment.
Uh-huh.
But, whether or not I'm actually prepared for things, I just feel like I'll figure it out.
Mm. So do eights make you feel more or less prepared than like do you
I don't, I mean, I guess I'm thinking right now about like eights in the workplace more than anything else. I don't know
yeah.
how I would deal with eights I don't know what that looks like in an interpersonal context. And I think maybe that's because the, so my eight friend, former
Hmm.
roommate,
Hmm.
has a nine wing, which I think makes it a little bit less impulsive and a little bit more reading
Hmm.
into the room, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's
Hmm.
the eight comes out much more about, well, what do people want to do? Let's feel things. This is what I want to do. And this is
Hmm.
what I'm comfortable with here. You know?
Hmm.
Like they're very much able to negotiate spaces like that in a way that I think an eight wing seven would be much more like, let's just go do this. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm doing. Um,
Mm.
but I think in the workplace is when I would maybe encounter something like that. I don't know if I would be friends. I guess I'm friends with a couple eights. I would just ask questions. I would just be like, hey, I don't understand this. And I'd make them stop and explain it to me. And maybe that would make them angry, but if that made them angry, I would just feel justified in it and get angry as well. So,
Mm. Makes sense. All right, moving on to the next blind spot. Even though eights may be working hard to keep their vulnerability from others, they may show it more than they realize, especially in moments of reflection or anticipating future challenges. Yeah, I've seen this in eights. You may think you're hiding it, but you do wear your emotions on your sleeve. Well, not on your sleeve, I guess. It's just more like, I see you.
it's out there.
It's out there. Like, especially when you go to five, like, people notice if you are generally a high energy person, people notice when you get quiet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. When people are unable to assert themselves or take control in a clumsy way, eights will quickly take charge of situations. Their assessment that someone is weak may lead them to disregard what others are saying or offering. Oh, I remember this, and I remember it sparked in me some memories of like working at a Ryza when we had like eights working with each other and eights trying to like be like, well, this is stupid and like usurp power and be like, we're doing this. And it's just, it doesn't work.
Well, it
Stop
doesn't
it.
make
I know. It just,
it's not important.
I know. Eights, unless it's your specific business, just take a breath. Just let it go. Breathe. All right. Eights don't react well to dishonesty or being blamed by others. And I think, well, see, the thing is, no one really reacts to dishonesty or being blamed. I think it's more perceived dishonesty and more perceived blame is where this comes into being like a blind spot because I feel like
Then
eights can,
overreact.
yeah, and they can get defensive when you're like, no, this is not like, especially if you criticize something they've done or like a group, like say a group project and you give some criticism, or
This shit happen with twos as well.
yeah, I
Like
can.
that same sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when
Where I
they'll
really
go to
don't
eight.
care whether about you. It's not a judgment. I mean, ones kind of have something similar as well.
Yeah.
Maybe we're all kind of fucked in that way.
Yeah.
But I don't care about you specifically. I just want it fixed.
Yeah. It's really not a big deal. No one's really blaming you. I don't know. Maybe they are blaming you, but just take a breath because
Well,
maybe
that's the
they're
thing.
not handling it well, but maybe you do need to apologize or something. I don't know.
It seems counterintuitive that eights would care about that though, because I thought they didn't care about what other people thought.
But that's the thing though. They do a little bit. I mean, not really. They care the least about what other people think of them, but no one is immune. And like when they go to two, they get some of those two traits, and twos care a lot about what other people think of them.
That poor heart center.
Hmm. So I don't know. I think it would hurt anyone's feelings to think if people thought that they were just mean and aggressive and I was on Reddit the other day and this eight posted about fives and was like, I just want fives to know that just because I have a lot of energy and I'm high energy doesn't mean I take up your energy. And she was very defensive. And I didn't respond because I was like, this isn't going to go anywhere. I'll just respond to her here. But it's like, okay, eights, you have to understand that. Okay, her point was that she wanted to say that just being around her shouldn't take up energy. And to quote her, she was like, eight's whole thing is like being an energizer bunny and just having energy. So we don't need to take your energy.
I thought that was
And
seven.
like, yeah, I don't think she had a clear grasp. She was definitely venting, and that's why I didn't respond. But eights, when you go into a room and you put out that energy, it takes energy to receive that energy, especially if you're a five. Like, I can't just not put energy into things because what that would look like if I didn't put any energy in would be if you said something, me just completely not listening to you or me completely just not reacting. And that's not, it takes energy to react, it takes energy to listen. So you do take up energy. And eights, it's okay to take up energy. Everyone in the world takes up energy. You're okay. And this specific eight, which honestly, she might not have been an eight, she might have been a two who just goes to eight, maybe. Thinking back at it now, her defensiveness, but then again, I don't know. She did have very eight like qualities. You do take up people's energy, but that's okay. It's okay to take up energy. It is okay to take up space. Eights, you are allowed to take up space, and that is not a bad thing. Just thought I would tell her that if she listens to the podcast, which she doesn't.
How's our audio quality?
Yes, please. Please respond on Reddit.
We have one more blind spot to cover.
Okay. I'll read that one and then you can do the strengths.
Okay, cool.
Um Eights don't conform to the rules and hate any attempts at being controlled. At the same time, their tendency to take control assumes that others will comply and conform to them. This could create tension in relationships. And I yeah, that was a whole thing in that other eights um post about like when she would get into fights with this one five. I think they were in a relationship. I think that was the real problem is that they were in a relationship and she was like her whole thing was I don't need emotional energy from you. Like I just don't need it. It's fine. You don't have to give it to me. And like no, no, it's there. And it is exhausting and it's
Always
fine.
like that though,
Huh?
and I think that's the the sort of logical like does not compute for the eight is that they can assume that you can just control everything,
Mhm.
that people can just control things,
Yeah.
and for a lot of us it doesn't work like that.
No. If I could control things, things would be very different. I wouldn't step in holes all the time and wouldn't have my ankles bandaged half the fucking time. I just want to stop stepping in holes. Like, fuck. I'm so clumsy.
You need to For your birthday I'm gonna get you one of those help I've fallen and I can't get up my flirt buttons.
Like, it'll come in handy. I'll end up using it. Uh, okay. I'll give you the strengths.
Okay, eights are assertive, like we didn't already know that from everything else. They're confident and direct. They say what they need to say and get on with things. That directness is also being decisive when the moment counts. They're quick to respond and willing to make decisions. This is why I think that they'd be great crisis leaders. They
Mm-hmm.
trust their gut instincts and will move things forward because they don't like
Mm-hmm.
dilly dally on how do people feel about shit. They're just gonna get stuff done. They're
Mm-hmm.
protective. They're big-hearted and take people under their wing. This is the loved by my people, feared by others. They have a very like us them mentality, and
Mm-hmm.
it starts out as like me them, and then you get to go into their inner circle, and then it's like an us them, and you become one of the pack. Um, they protect the people and things they care about and will fight against injustices. They're independent and self-sufficient. They dislike being dependent on others and have idealized their version of autonomy, so they want to maintain that at all costs. Um, they're also influential. They have like there's a very big eight vibe. Like when you step into a room with an eight, you know that you stepped into a room with an eight. You
Yeah.
know, like
Mm-hmm.
there's a presence there, and this is the thing about like taking up space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that they just have energy that they exude, and it, helps them out in life. They go places. I'm looking forward to this redo of our next section, because since we first recorded this episode, I have received your wonderful gift called
Oh, that's right.
Enneagram by Anne Gad,
Yeah,
where she
Sex in the Enneagram.
explicitly talks about what we're next going to discuss.
Disgust.
I
I
can
ha
speak English.
I have not read any of this book yet. I haven't cracked it open. I have so much other stuff.
Eight's
Uh,
motto: Life is rough, but I'm tougher. Come here and let me show you how.
oh God. Okay. So so sex positions. So we started reading articles. I can't remember. Oh, the Elite Daily was the first article we read, and they gave a sex position to every type. And then after that, the Every Girl came out with an article that also gave a sex position for every type. And so the Elite Daily gave eights the bridge. And quote, the challenger type loves to prove their strength and be in control. They also enjoy, as the name suggests, a challenge. The bridge could be a really satisfying position to try because it requires the penetrative partner to hold a lot of the receiving partner's weight while they go at it. And
I
then the
But the thing
every
is, it wouldn't be interesting for eights if they're not the penetrator. So it kind of assumes that that's.
mm-hmm,
But
yeah.
I mean, it does fit with the whole like. I don't want to reinforce the dichotomy that like being the penetrator means that you're being dominant in the situation, though.
Because there are power bottoms.
There are definitely power bottoms.
But I don't think the bridge is a power bottom position.
No. Can I read you what Anne Gad has to say about? First of all, she breaks down. She has a new triad, which is very interesting. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
cover this triad after we finish our current triad
hmm
series. We
Okay.
have several in the works. But she has maternal, paternal, and erotic love. And she's very careful to point out that maternal and paternal are not necessarily gendered, but they're more talking about the cultural conceptions of what is maternal and what is paternal and
Mm.
the energy of the situation. But erotic is, or childlike, um, is a self focused, childlike approach that's, quote, all about me. And that's the 3, 7, and 8 are all in that specific triad.
Mm.
And now within these triads, she has a counter type, which is set apart or different from the other ones in that sort of triad. And she says for the eights that unlike the sevens and threes who want admiration from others, the eights are self-admiring, which means that they don't really care if you like them or not. Which means that they're somewhat different from the "it's all about me" in the sense that you should worship and adore me. It's all about me because I worship and adore me.
Ah. Okay.
Um, so a little bit of food for thought about how that works in the sexy times. There's lots of people who have thoughts about eights being kinky though, S&M stuff.
hmm Yeah. Oh, I'll read the next position. So the Every Girl article said that the type 8 position is reverse cowgirl on a chair. Quote, what else can I say but that eights have a major top energy? They like being able to create the pace, but they're also not afraid to loosen up the reins a little bit in the name of some pleasure. Instead of the usual reverse cowgirl where your partner lies on their back, this one props you both up a little by having your partner sit upright in a chair. You'll sit backwards and back into them. This puts all of the control in your hands, a dream for an eight. So you can decide how fast, how deep, and how hard you want it. To make it a little more fun, have your partner hold your arms as they thrust up and down. A little power reversal never hurt anyone. So once again, this is really gendered as like the top person being the like penetrated. If you're the penetrator, the reverse cowgirl on a trail on a chair on a trail. Oh my god, on a chair doesn't work as well. So we said that the best position for a type 8 is sex against a wall.
I still agree that like okay, sex against a wall,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
might I submit to the jury, semi-public sex,
Explain.
in the sense of like being spontaneous, just like I'm horny and I want sex now.
Hmm. I think we gave public sex to fives.
Did we? I
Yeah,
can't. That was several months ago.
it was, but we gave it to fives.
Are they into it for the kink? Is it like, is it the,
It's a little bit into it for the kink, and I shared my story about how
oh,
like,
yep.
yep, mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I don't
Okay.
think, yeah. So we gave public sex to type fives.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm feeling the five vibes from the eights.
Yeah. If you disintegrate a little bit, maybe some public sex will. Yeah. You cut out a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Can I read this section? It's a
Yes.
very good. I don't need to read all of it, but
Go ahead, read the section.
okay. So, um, what Miss Ann Gadd has to say on the issue is that what eight men seldom reveal is that they can experience premature ejaculation more than the other types. Limited mean that sexual energy remains awakened, leaving a level of arousal even after sex. In other words, there's more to be released. It can also mean that sexual gratification is more egoic than physical, and that partners can be blamed and then driven to find greater satisfaction. Even if they don't experience premature ejaculation, there can be an emotional experience of feeling unfulfilled by a deeper desire for intimacy, though eights may interpret it simply as a need for more sex. Eights can also be obsessed with the size of their manhood because, quote, real men have big penises, end quote. This, of course, can be a problem if they're not well endowed. So, now you know, eight men got problems. Sorry for all the eight men out there. I assure you, you're not less well endowed than I am. So, it's all good.
Ah. Okay. But yeah, so sex up against the wall because any partner can be the more aggressive partner in that, or a little bit of role reversal, never hurt anyone. But yeah. And I definitely think eights have top energy because all of the eights I've met have talked about being doms and stuff. So yeah.
Although I will submit that perhaps in a very close, intimate relationship, eights are actually the bottom. Like if you really trust your partner,
I think they could be, but I don't think they'd ever go full bottom. I think
or
the most that we
I,
could get would be a switch.
but I think that the really like erotic thing would be the exact opposite of how you are most of the time,
I
right?
guess, yeah. Um, but like
Because that's new and exciting.
It is. And the thing with the bottoms is it's the release of control.
Hmm.
And so an eight would have to be in a good place in general
Yeah. You'd have to
to,
be very well integrated in with a partner that you trusted with
yeah.
your life. Probably literally.
Uh, yeah. I have a hard time seeing type eights as bottoms, but I'm sure they exist.
I think peak 8 is probably bottom energy, actually.
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
Okay.
that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Valid. All right, so more fun stuff. We have, well, actually, I went through and I assigned each type what dog I see them as. And so type eights I see as German shepherds because they're very protective, can be aggressive, but they they are just like good type eights personified because they're just so protective and good doggos. Um, and like I remember one time I was babysitting this like little baby, and this German Shepherd did not take her eyes off me. Like she would not leave me alone with that baby. And anytime the baby cried, she would like whimper a little bit and like get kind of anxious and like look at me. And like I knew that if I ever tried to hurt that baby, which of course I wouldn't, that dog would kill me. Like there would have been no hesitation. But yeah, so type 8s are German shepherds, and I believe you suggested that they're corgis, which I don't know a lot about corgis.
I
So,
don't know either, but I do know that my friend who is an 8 is obsessed with corgis, so that's why I think that they're corgis.
uh,
I don't, and just look at them. I'm just gonna show you. I'm just gonna go look at corgis now, and that's it. They're so they're so small
mhm.
and
Yeah. And so now on to
there
memes.
is one with aviator glasses.
Oh, I
Here is
went
one
to
on a
memes.
throne.
So I went to memes. All
Okay,
right. And I don't remember who had what memes.
who knows?
So let's see. I think I was the upper three. Maybe
Okay,
not. I don't know.
I
I'll
don't remember. We have five,
mhm.
and you can see them in our show notes,
I don't know if I actually
or maybe you can't see them in the show notes. We'll
yeah.
just have to do like an image capture and description.
Yeah, and I'll tweet it out. Um, I'll make a collage and tweet it out. So the one is Nick Fury, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Samuel L.
says,
Jackson as Nick Fury.
yeah, and the quote is, "I recognize the council has made a decision, but given that it's a stupid ass decision, I've elected to ignore it." That's some peak eight energy right there.
It really is.
hmm
Okay, I
Um,
feel like this next meme has spanned several episodes. Isn't
I
this
think it,
been
I think it has, and I don't remember. I
was it
don't know.
seven as well?
I think it might have been seven as well. I don't know. Could be
It's
five too. It has some
the
five
little girl
energy.
standing in front of the fire truck of in front of a building burning, just kind of side glancing at the camera.
hmm Yeah. I see this as an eight who's taken revenge on someone.
She burned that building down.
Yeah. The next one is the dude who like gets the medal and he like kisses the woman and he like grabs her butt and is just going ham and he's only in third place. Now that I'm looking at it, I don't necessarily. I mean, there's some eight energy there, but I don't know if it's necessarily eights.
I feel like those are six men, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry to throw you all under the bus, but
Yeah. I don't know what we said last episode about it. I don't know what our defense was. I'm feeling differently now. I don't know who had that one though. So, all right.
and
Okay.
then the next one is a picture of a tweet by @tragic ally here. Um, And it says, as a woman, I'm constantly bouncing between wishing to live in a cottage surrounded by wildflowers as I bake a tiny cake for a field of mouse's birthday party, and wanting to climb the corporate ladder, crushing all men under my boots on my way to sword fight the president.
Very eight energy. So the last one is, and I don't know. I disagree with this one. I feel like this is more other types. But it's Kermit talking to like dark Kermit. Um,
Yeah, I don't know what we were thinking about that.
I don't know why we put that in. I don't know who
Me.
put that in.
I think that was my bad beam.
Yeah, that seems more like a nine, or I could see seven.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more accurate, yeah.
Yeah.
So we already, I mean, the question of the week isn't really like it's or week, question of the month.
Mm-hmm.
We do this every time.
Yeah.
Question of the month isn't really like necessary because we already did our 9 episode. I
Mm-hmm.
bared my soul. Go listen to it. Um,
Here, a question of the month for this specific episode is: how's our audio? Email us. What's the audio like? Is this audio messed up?
Tweet us at EnneathingGoes on Twitter. Email us anythinggoes@gmail.com. Leave us a review about our audio or about our content. Either one works for us. And check out our other episodes on the different types and our series on the triads.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Bye.